My main attempt this evening will be to reflect upon Edward's fascinating essay entitled Lost Causes that combines intriguing literary assessments with his complex understanding of the Palestinian ordeal and destiny. This essay was one of his last major interpretive contributions, and according to his friend and associate Andrew Rubin, was regarded by Edward as the publication that satisfied him most in the final period of his life. Part of my interest in this theme of lost causes derives from a rather tense encounter I had with the French ambassador to the UN at a private dinner in New York City at the end of my term as UN Special Rapporteur for Occupied Palestine. Our host had invited a dozen or so diplomats who sat around the table to comment upon the Israel-Palestine conflict as they waited for the main course to be served, and I was expected to respond to each of them. This typically overconfident and somewhat belligerent French diplomat started the ball rolling with some very provocative statements. He said, let's face it, the conflict is over. Israel has won, the Palestinians have been defeated, there is nothing more to be done or said. I'm not happy about this, but this is the reality. We should move on. In effect, in the spirit of cynical realism, he was declaring that the Palestinian struggle was indeed over. In a way, my choice of focus tonight can be seen as a more considered response to this French ambassador that evening, as an insistence on my part that the Palestinian struggle is not a lost cause in his sense, and even if it were a lost cause from the perspective of realism, a continued commitment to the Palestinian struggle is greatly to be preferred to some kind of defeatist resignation and indifference toward such a grossly unjust outcome of such an epic struggle. My deeper conviction is that the appearance of Palestinian defeat is an optical illusion that hides the deeper reality of a probable impending Israeli defeat, that while Israel is winning one war due to its military dominance and continuous establishment of facts on the ground, Palestine is winning what in the end is the more important war, the legitimacy struggle that is most likely to determine the political outcome. If the outcome of international conflicts during the last 50 years is carefully considered, it reveals the astonishing conclusion that the weaker side militarily controlled the political outcome almost all the time in struggles against foreign rule and occupation. It turns out that in recent history, it is on the side with the greatest perseverance and resilience, not the side that controls the battlefield, that wins in the end. This is a profound and very new reality that was not true at all during the era of European colonialism, and not generally until 1945 at the end of World War II. The failures of foreign interventions and occupations should have been the lesson that the US government learned in Vietnam, but failed to do so. It remains the great unlearned and anti-realist lesson. Military superiority in this period, unlike in earlier periods, has lost most of its historical agency in politically and ethically oriented conflicts against foreign, especially Western, domination. The presentation of Hamas and what it stands for is a complex issue that hasn't been very intelligently depicted in this country and by the mainstream media. Hamas is a organization that has its own evolution, its own political evolution. And it is certainly the case that its covenant is a bloodthirsty document that certainly doesn't advance any prospect of reconciliation. But its own evolution, including becoming a political actor with the encouragement at the time of Washington to engage in competitive elections back in 2006, I think represented a deep choice by the Hamas leadership that they wanted to pursue the future through a nonviolent political process. That was and they sent, which is probably not very widely known, they sent a message to Bush as soon as they were elected saying, we don't want violence to be part of the future. We are ready to agree to a long-term plan of peaceful coexistence up to 50 years. And I've had conversations with both Michel and Marzouk, two of the primary leaders of Hamas, both of whom have rather convincingly expressed their sense that they have no idea of liberating Palestine by armed struggle, and that they are ready for a political process of a long-term nature. And it is Israel that hasn't allowed them to escape from this terrorist box, because it serves their purposes of maintaining a kind of enemy that can be characterized as terrorist and therefore can be attacked at free will with no constraints. If we really seek peace and justice for both peoples, we will reconsider what Hamas represents and how properly to approach their role in a future Palestine. Just one more remark about this. I was at an off-the-record talk by John Major, the former Prime Minister of Britain, who talked about the conflict in Northern Ireland while he was Prime Minister, and said he only made progress in resolving that conflict when he stopped thinking of the IRA as a terrorist organization and began to realize that they were a political actor with grievances and claims. And if we want peace, and this includes Iran as well as Hamas and the narrower conflict, if we want peace, we have to learn to think politically and not engage in this stereotyping of our adversaries as unconditionally evil, while our friends are unconditionally good.